The Man in the Attic, Part 1, Day 1. There was an unusual stain on the ceiling of the cabin we rented. On the wooden ceiling was an unusually discolored area. I didn't really like the look of it, so I called a company that owned the cabin. They were quick to assure me that there was some minor repairs done to the cabin recently, and that the stain was just some of the newly installed materials not being painted yet. The owner was really apologetic, and that the person meant to paint the cabin never showed up. It was an old stain, but that they offered a discount on the cabin made it easier to swallow, as long as there wasn't any structural damage. This would be a nice place to stay for me and my family, so ignoring the stain, we went and unpacked. Day 2. I was woken up late in the night. My son was tugging on my blanket. Half awake, I turned to him and he looked really scared. "Daddy, there's something knocking on my ceiling." I was confused at first, but as I slowly woke up, my son's words became more clear. I put him in bed with the wife and got up to take a look. My son's room was down the hall in the cabin. The room's door was open, and because my son ran out in a hurry, the light was still on. Going inside, I looked around. Aside of some messed up blankets and toys that weren't put away, I didn't hear any thumping or anything like that. He must have had a nightmare and freaked out because it was a new location. I started putting away the toys so I can go back to sleep. Tomorrow I was going to talk to him and let him know there was nothing to be scared of, that it was just his imagination. As I was packing up the toys, I heard it. Thump, thump. It came from above and it was loud. I waited. Maybe it was the pipes or some pine cones falling on the roof outside. Thump, thump. It was just above me, like something was heavily stomping on the ground. What was that? Thump, thump. It was further away now, like from the hallway outside the door. So I left my son's room and made my way to the hallway again. Thump, thump. The sound was even louder in the hallway. I saw dust drift down from the ceiling, centered around the stain. I waited, and the sound never came back. Not for the 10 minutes I waited. Eventually, I went back to the bedroom and went back to sleep. I locked the door first. Day 3. The next day, I made another call to the management. Brought up what happened last night. Was there something wrong with the pipes? The management was confused and told us the piping for the cabin was in the ground and sides. There should be nothing but wiring up there. It didn't rain, and looking outside in the morning, it didn't look like nothing fell onto the roof. They promised to send someone to look real quick to make sure everything was working. So I shrugged it off and took the family hiking. As I left the hallway, I swore the stain on the ceiling was bigger. As we left, we saw a pickup truck full of tools pull up to the cabin's driveway. The repairman met us and let us know that he'll take a look at the place, see what was causing the sound. So we left, figuring the issue was going to be solved. It was a nice day out with the family, even with my wife pushing me into the lake we found. After sunshine and new experiences for our son, it was a good day. When we got back, the repair guy's truck was still there. But when we looked inside, he was nowhere to be found. But the stain on the hallway ceiling was gone. Maybe his truck wasn't working or something, and he needed to be picked up. But it's obvious he did some work in the cabin. Either way, we were tired and sweaty, so didn't think too much about it. Day 4. Thump, thump. I was woken out of sleep by the loud sound. It was even louder than before. Thump, thump, thump. It moved from my room to the hallway. I was quick to get up and pick up the hiking stick we used earlier in the day. It was solid wood and I can really give a good whack with it. I shook my wife awake and she froze when she saw the stick in my hand. "Come on," I whispered. "We have to get Kenny." She got up, half awake, wondering what was going on. Thump, 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 thump. She froze and she looked up to the ceiling, then turned her gaze back to me when I nodded. I put on my shoes as fast as possible as she got up to put on more clothes than her PJ. We quickly made our way out of the hallway. Thump, thump. As I opened the door, I heard loud crying coming from Kenny's room. We were quick to rush to his door. Thump, thump. The crying got louder and we went in to open the door. It was locked. My wife began to panic. "Kenny, baby, open the door," she begged. "Mommy." Instantly came the response. That was all I needed to hear. I handed my wife the walking stick and charged into the door shoulder first. Luckily, it wasn't solid wood, and it didn't take more than a few hits to break through the door. Inside, my boy was on the bed, hiding under the sheets, crying. The reason was apparent. Long, clawed hands were coming out of a hole in the ceiling, fluid that looked like rotted blood dripping down them and splashing onto the bed. It was reaching for my boy. Again, I didn't think much. I took the heavy walking stick from my wife and smacked the clawed limbs away from the bed. Something hissed from the hole above. My wife was quick to act too. She ran over to the bed and bundled Kenny up, blanket and all, and came back towards the door. The hands swung for her and I jumped on the bed and hit them again. hard enough to hear something crack. I hoped it was the hands, but looking at my weapon, it was the walking stick. Thump, thump. A third long claw swung at me. All I could do was put the damaged walking stick in front of me, broke the stick in half, and the impact punched me off the bed and onto the hallway where my wife was still retreating with Kenny. Thump, thump. The ceiling above us in the hallway was opening up and 3 clawed hands were reaching down for us. I still had the stick, now sticks in my hands, so I took the pointed ends and stabbed them into the nearest limb I could reach. A roar of agony came from the ceiling as I motioned for my wife holding Kenny to keep moving. I don't know how we made it out of the front door and into the car. I didn't even have the keys on me, but there was a spare under the front tire. So we drove away from the cabin, and we didn't stop until we reached town. I called the police and told them the whole story. They thought I was insane or on drugs. But that afternoon, in our rented cheap motel room, someone knocked on the door. Opening up, there were 2 people in suits, a man and a woman. "Hello, we heard you may have had an interesting encounter." End of part 1.